All right, let's talk about the economy. You hear about it all the time, but the big picture, what experts call macroeconomic instability, can feel a little, well, complicated. But what if I told you it's a lot like a ride you've already been on?
So let's just jump right in with a question. We're always hearing about economic growth, right? But does that mean it just goes up and up forever in a nice, neat, predictable line?
Yeah, not even close. In reality, it's so much more like a roller coaster. You know the feeling, it's got those thrilling peaks, those stomach-lurching drops, and then the slow climb back up to the top. These ups and downs are actually a totally natural part of how our economy functions.
So let's buckle up and actually ride this thing. Economists have a name for this roller coaster. They call it the business cycle. And it has 4 very distinct phases that just keep repeating. If you can wrap your head around these 4 phases, you can understand pretty much any headline you see about the economy. First up, you've got the peak. Just imagine you're at the very top of that first big hill, right before the drop. You can see everything. That's the peak. Business is booming, pretty much everyone who wants a job has one, and productivity is through the roof. Things are feeling really good. But, as we all know, what goes up must come down. And that big drop after the peak, that's the recession. This is when things start to slow down. Total output, people's incomes, and employment all start to fall. And it isn't just 1 or 2 companies having a bad month, it's a slowdown across the entire economy.
And at the very bottom of that drop, we hit what's called the trough. Think of it as the point where the roller coaster car bottoms out. Output and employment have hit their lowest levels for that particular ride. Sometimes this part is over quick, and other times, well, it can feel like it lasts a while.
And of course, from the bottom, the only way to go is up. The ride starts its slow, chugging climb back to the top. That's the recovery phase. During this part of the ride, output and employment start to rise again, heading back towards that full employment we saw at the peak. And once it gets there, the whole ride starts all over again.
Okay, so that's the cycle in theory. Peak, recession, trough, recovery. But this roller coaster isn't just an abstract idea. It has a very real human cost. And the most direct way we all feel it is with our jobs. So let's talk about unemployment.
So we know that during that downhill recession phase, unemployment is probably going to go up. You hear that number, the unemployment rate, on the news all the time. But have you ever stopped to wonder how they actually calculate it? Where does that one little percentage come from?
Okay, this is super important because the official definitions really matter here. The labor force isn't just everybody. It's only made up of 2 groups of people, the employed and the unemployed. And here is the absolute key. To be officially counted as unemployed, you can't just be out of a job. You have to be actively looking for one in the last 4 weeks. That's why people like full-time students or homemakers or retirees aren't counted. They're considered not in the labor force.
All right, you ready to play economist for a minute? Let's use some real-world style numbers. We've got about 146 million people with jobs, another 8.5 million who are unemployed, and then about 79 million who aren't in the labor force at all. How do we turn all of this into that one magic number? First things first, we need to figure out how big the total labor force is. And that's easy. You just add the number of employed people to the number of unemployed people. In this case, that gives us a total labor force of 154.4 million people. And now for the formula. It might look a little mathy, but I promise it's simple. You just take the number of unemployed people, divide it by the total labor force we just figured out, and then multiply by 100 to turn it into a percentage. So let's plug in our numbers, shall we? We take our 8.5 million unemployed people, divide by our 154.4 million person labor force, multiply by 100, and voila! We get an official unemployment rate of 5.5%. See? Not so scary. But here's the thing. Not all unemployment is the same. Frictional unemployment is just that normal between jobs period. Then you've got structural unemployment, which is a bit more serious. That's when there's a mismatch between the skills people have and the jobs that are actually available. But that third one, cyclical unemployment, that's the one tied directly to our roller coaster. It's the unemployment that's caused specifically by that downturn in the economy during a recession.
So this ride clearly affects jobs, but it also hits your wallet in another really big way. We need to talk about the price of everything, or what economists call inflation. And this is a really simple but powerful idea, right? The ups and downs of the economy don't just affect whether or not you have a paycheck. They directly impact how much that gallon of milk or that tank of gas is going to cost you. Now, generally, prices go up for one of two main reasons. First, you have demand pull inflation. This is the classic too much money chasing too few goods. Everybody's spending like crazy, and there's just not enough stuff to go around, so prices get pulled up. On the flip side, you have cost push inflation. This is when it just gets more expensive to make things. Maybe oil prices spike or supply chains get tangled. Those higher costs then get pushed onto us, the consumers, in the form of higher prices.
Okay, we have been through the loops, we've gone through the drops, and we've made the climb. But let's bring it all back home. Why does understanding this economic roller coaster actually matter in your day-to-day life? So let's do a quick recap. The big takeaway is that the economy moves in a cycle: peak, recession, trough, recovery. That downhill part, the recession, is what causes that painful cyclical unemployment. Remember, the official unemployment number only counts people who are actively looking for a job. And finally, this whole cycle affects the prices you pay for everything through both demand pull and cost push inflation.
And all of this brings us to one last really big question. We've mapped out the ride, right? We get the phases, we see how they affect jobs and prices. So if we understand this whole business cycle, can we actually do anything to control it? Can we smooth out the bumps, make the good times last longer and the bad times less painful? Well, that's a great topic for another time. Thanks for joining me.